Okay, since last lecture we have been discussing a very fine drama by Girish Karnad entitled Nagamandala. In the last
Yes,
lecture we discussed the career and the personality of Girish Karnad. We
Girish
saw
Karnad.
how multi-talented he was, and we discussed his contribution as a writer, as a playwright, as a director, and screenplay writer. Right? We saw that he wrote usually in two languages. First was Kannada, second was English. We went through his notable works like Yayati, like Tughlaq, like Hayavadana, and
And
Nagamandala.
Nagmandala.
Right? We saw that most of the awards received by Karnar was the prestigious ones, that is Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, Sahitya Academy Award, and Gyanpith Award. We also saw the writing style of Girish Karnad. We saw how Girish Karnad uses local myths, local stories, local characters as a raw material for his writing. And he copied local or let's say traditional myths in his writing and presented the same with new vision, with new issue. We saw that Karnad's writing specialty is what? There is a fine mixture of tradition and modernity.
Modern thinking.
So the modern issues like feminism, modern issues like education to women, the modern issue like freedom to woman, woman as a person, right? So existentialism of woman, all these things, all these modern perspective things have been highlighted in his writing with traditional touch also. So we don't find superstition on all other things in his writing. He presents the fine mixture of tradition and modernity in his writing. And his writing is in a very simple language, very lucid one, right? Very juicy, very interesting, right? And most of the stories in his dramas are very simple to understand, with a heavy message. Also, we saw that he received many prestigious awards like Karnataka Natka Academy Award, like Homi Baba Fellowship, and many more. And we continued with his style that the ancient manuscripts like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all many things are used in his plays. Right? We saw yesterday that the film is there, right? That is Naga Mandala, which was based on our present novel, our present drama. That is Naga Mandala, right? And the film inspired one more Hindi movie, that is Paheli, acted by Shah Rukh Khan, right? And it is a good, very proud thing that Nagamandala film was selected for Indian Panorama in the International Film Festival held in 1997. So we can guess what kind of this drama could be. So nice. So if we go through the dramas by Girish Karnal, we can simply understand that Nagamandala is a typical drama by Girish Karnad, which indicates all the characteristics, all the features, all the qualities of Girish Karnad's writing, right? All the qualities or let's say specialty of Karnad is, for example, where myth takes over a reality. As I told you that mythological touch is there to the writings of Girish Karnad. In the present drama also, he uses the myth of Naga plus Mandala. So Naga Mandala, as we discussed in the last lecture, that this is a myth in Karnataka. It's a snake dance. It's a ritual in Karnataka, and the dramatist Girish Karnad uses this myth of Naga Mandala in the present drama, and he uses that myth with reality. So fine mixture of myth plus reality is there in our present drama. What kind of reality is there we could see in the story. Right? So Girish Karnad is a contemporary Indian playwright, actor and movie director as we discussed. Uh, and it is a proud thing that he is among the 7 recipients of Jnanpith Award for Kannada language. Right? That's the highest honor in India. Our play, that is Nagamandala, was wrote in 1987 and 88. The play is based on two old Kannada tales he had heard from his mentor friend, Rupanian. We will discuss this one also. Right? So history and myth is there in the present novel, the present drama. We discussed yesterday that the play was also performed in America, right, in 1993. We discussed in the last lecture the title of the present drama, that is Naga Mandala. We saw that Naga means snake and Mandala is nothing but dance. So say the ritual. Naga Mandala means simply means snake dance, and it is a ritual, right? In Karnataka state, right? And Karnad used to live there. So he uses the local myth of Nagamandala. As I told you that Nagas are worshipped in India. They are what is a symbol of Lord Shiva, right? So
Yes.
such kind of thing is presented in the present drama also, right? So Nagamandala, it means snake dance. In the last lecture, we discussed that what kind of Naga Mandala is performed in Karnataka, right? So Naga means meaning of serpent, that is snake. Mandala refers to drawing of serpent on the floor, right? And we saw that in Naga Mandala ritual, there are two characters. One is a male snake, and second is a female snake,
Female
and
snake.
they dance together. We call it as Nag and Nagin, right? But the one more thing is
Yes.
that in that dance, the humans actually perform and they try to copy the activities of the Nagas. Okay, so they express love and directly sex. Right, when we find snake, a male snake and female snake, say Nag or Nagin all together, they just share love and sex. That is called Milan in Marathi, right? So Naga Mandala is nothing but just to show or to highlight the love, or let's say the sex between male and female snake, right? So the humans get the costumes of the Nagas, means upper body is painted or just like costumes are indicating they are snakes. राईट एक प्रकारचे असे कापड घालायचे की वरचं कमरेपासून तर वरचा भाग सापासारखा दिसेल फणा असेल डोक्याच्या वरती राईट खालचा भाग जस्ट लाईक ह्युमन बीइंग्स अँड दे स्टार्टेड डुईंग द डान्स नागा dance, right? So in that dance, it is as it can be called as Ardhanari, Ardhanarishwar, right? So we can Google it and find more information regarding Nagamandala ritual in Karnataka. You can Google it. Okay. Let's move forward. I
Oh, sir.
Let's move towards the characters. As the specialty of Girish Karnad's dramas, we don't find crowd of characters in his writing. Right. So uh, Karnad uses a very limited use of characters in his writing. So in most of his dramas, we don't have much crowd of characters, as I said. So limitations of characters. This is a specialty of his writing. In our present drama also, we just have two or three, almost four characters in the present drama. Fourth character is a minor one, right? So almost three to four characters have been used in the present story. And let's begin with the protagonist, that is Rani. Rani is the first character, and as the title indicates, Rani is a female. And in our early discussion, we discussed that Girish Karnad was a great supporter of feminism, was a great supporter of women's freedom, and he advocates education to women, he advocates personality of women, he advocates freedom to women, justice to women. And what happens in our Indian society, as our society is dominated by males, our society is a male dominated society, and in our society, it's a reality that women are exploited, women are tortured, even though the male or let's say women are educated, right? Even though the family background is rich, even though the family background is of educated people, though the exploitation of women continues, right? And it is the reality of Indian society that women are denied their own existence, right? And especially after their marriage, a woman has to depend on her husband, right? And what happens? Uh, Cruelties by husband towards the wife is considered as a normal thing in our society. Whenever a husband beats up a wife, it is considered as a normal thing. It is so strange, right? And somewhat torture is there in our present drama, right? In our present drama, the dramatist presents the female character as the protagonist. So we can guess Girish Karnad just takes the side of the females in this regard, and we must we must acknowledge the reformative thinking of Girish Karnad in this regard. So Rani, let's have introduction regarding this character. She is a woman character of the play. She is the protagonist. She is young. She is beautiful. But what happens after her marriage? She comes to live with her husband, and she has many expectations from her husband that her husband would take care of her. Her husband would offer her love, right, including emotional love and sexual love also. Her expectation was that her husband would take care of her, support her, right, like that. So every newly married woman has such kind of expectation from her husband, right? And Rani has the same expectations, right? So it's natural. But unfortunately, all these expectations are not fulfilled by her husband, right? So when the story starts, we see the tyranny on Rani, the cruel behavior of her husband towards Rani. And like a typical Indian married woman, Rani tolerates all such tyrannies. She bears, she tolerates the strange behavior of her husband, right? So, in the very beginning of the story, her expectations from her husband, right, came to a frustrated married life. But she utters not a single word against these tyrannies, against this, what to say, torture. So it is a typical Indian woman, right? Typical married Indian woman, I would say. So Rani is tortured, Rani is neglected, Rani is never loved by her husband, and Rani, like a typical Indian woman, tolerates all these things and she never complains. She never complains. And she does not give up her values of life. And Rani is a woman of values. Though she receives no love and care from her husband, she is working like a Sati Savitri in Indian context. So Rani can be called as a Sati Savitri. And for her, her husband is nothing but her Devta, her Dev. Right? So, like a Sati Savitri, she accepts this torture also. So indirectly, the dramatist attacks on such kind of injustice regarding women, and this is, I would say, a very sorry situation in Indian domestic life. Right? भारतातल्या बहुतेक घरामध्ये अशाच पद्धतीच्या ह्या गोष्टी सुरू आहेत. Right? So she tolerates all the tyrannies, insults, and ignorance, right, by her husband, and she does not give up as she believes in the values of her life. She is the only child of her parents, right? So she is the only daughter of her parents, and as we know, she got immense love, a great love from her parents. And what happens? She expects the same amount of love after marriage also. But unfortunately, she gets rejection, she gets ignorance from her husband from the very first day of her marriage. Right? So this ignorance drama starts from the very first day of her marriage life. Right? So, as happens with most of the Indian girls, her fond father finds a match for his daughter and marries her to Apanna. Apanna is the name of her husband, right? We can say that an Indian father generally thinks that a man is good match for his daughter if he has means to provide wherewith to his daughter. These fathers never bother about the character of the men with whom their daughters have to pass their lives. Right. So, like a typical father, he finds a what's a bridegroom for Rani. That bridegroom is rich, right, wealthy, and the father of Rani expects that as the man is having enough money, Rani would be Rani in her house after marriage. The dramatist indirectly tells us that the character of a bridegroom is very important rather than his wealth. And like a typical Indian father, he searches a bridegroom with enough money and he expects that his darling daughter would be comfortable after marriage. But what happens after the marriage? Rani is so frustrated. But still, she has not a single word of complaint. She never shares her grief to her father. Okay, so this is the story of Rani that is very painful right from the beginning. The second important character in the story is Apanna. Apanna, right? So he is a very young man and has no parents alive. Like Rani, Apanna was the only son of their parents. So again, typical Indian mentality of daughter's father, that only son with enough money guarantees a girl a very comfortable married life. Right? Apanna is the only son of their parents, and unfortunately, his parents are no more, right? And as I told you, that Apanna is very wealthy, but he is having a bad character. Like he is addicted to visit concubine every night. Here, concubine means prostitute, right? Every night, and continues it even after marriage. So Aparna has a very bad habit to visit prostitutes every night, and it is so shocking that even after the marriage, he continues visiting to those concubines, means the prostitutes. We can say that marriage brings no change in the behavior of Aparna. So he continues his habit of visiting prostitutes even after marriage. Isn't it very shocking for a newly married woman? Right? It was so shocking. And Rani, we are very surprised that Rani just knows all these things and still she is very silent. She is very submissive. Right? And we can say that Aparna marries Rani but never loves her. Right? And Rani for Aparna is nothing but a maid and a cook. A maid and a cook. So what is the duty of Rani then? Just to cook food for her husband, that is Aparna, right? To look after all the household duties, like washing clothes, making dishes, washing dishes, right? Cooking, and all these things. So Rani, not as a wife for Aparna, but as a maid and cook for him, right? And see, for the whole day he is with Rani, but he never touched her body. But he never tries to have a very sweet talk to newly wedded girl, that is Rani. On the contrary, what he does, he locks her up in the house. As we know that in the house, just two characters are living, Aparna and Rani. And Aparna does what? Aparna surprisingly locks her up in the house in night and comes back next day for lunch only. So Rani is suffering from many issues. First thing, she suffers negligence, rejection from her husband, right? She has no touch of love and sex from her husband, right? She tolerates all such cruelty by her husband, right? And the next thing was that he locks her up in the house. So no neighbors are allowed to have a talk with Rani. So no neighbors, no friends, right? So she has to be in the house in a locked position without having no social relationship. No neighbors, no contact, no chatting with others, no social relationship, no friendship with others. So loneliness, isolation, life in exile, she is suffering. Let's move towards the third character, that is Kudava. As most of the names are from South India, South Indian languages. Krudwa, Krudava, Krudwa, right? So Krudwa was an elderly woman and she was an old friend of Aparna's parents. Aparna's parents' old friend, right? And she is very senior and she is sympathetic to Rani and gives her support. She is very sympathetic to Rani and Kurdava is the only character in the whole village who learns the story of Rani, right? And when she learns that Rani is having a very frustrated married life, Rani is locked up in the house alone, right? And Rani loves no love and care from her husband. Rani is just Rani is just tolerating all these things very silently, and Kurudava feels very sympathy for Rani and she supports her very much. And whenever Kurudava finds some time, she secretly comes to meet Rani, right? Whenever Aparna is not there at the home, Kurudava finds a time, little time to have a chat with Rani, right? And Rani feels secure in the company of Kurudava, right? So Rani receives what you say sympathy and support from Kurudava, the character. And Kurudava feels strongly that the situation of Rani should be changed, right? And Kurudava gives Rani a love route. What kind of love route is that? We would see in the story. So it's a magical love route offered to Rani by Kurudava. And Kurudava feels that with the help of that love route, the frustrated married life of Rani would be changed. Right? Let's move towards the plot summary. Right? And